Welcome back to the Wake Up Bright podcast with me, April Lauren. On this podcast, I share stories that help me live each day a little brighter, a little healthier. And I talk with people I find uplifting and inspirational. In today's episode, I have a wonderful guest, Joy Southwell. Joy exudes strength, kindness, and beauty both internally and externally. I first met Joy at a Deca event. I remember being amazed that she finished so fast. She beat most of the men there. She flew through the event seemingly with ease. She inspired and inspires me to dig in and give a little more, to focus on what I want to accomplish. And I'm grateful to have met her. Joy is an athlete, educator, wife, and mom. She embarked on her own fitness journey, health journey, weight loss journey. She has said, approaching 40, I had high blood pressure and was tired all the time. I started getting into functional fitness and running events. When the sun set on running, I was fortunate enough to find Deka Fit, or Deka Strong. At almost 47, I feel and perform the best I ever have. Hey, Joy. Welcome to my podcast. I'm so excited to have you.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background? And if you want to dive into your story, you can, or if you just want to piece it out, you can do that too, whatever you
want. Yeah, we'll kind of pace it out. I'm Joy Southwell. I am 47 years old as a special education coordinating teacher for special education math. So I kind of help facilitate the whole special ed math program in the whole county. I've been a teacher since I was like 21 years old, which is a busy job, and a job that sometimes leads to you caring for others more than you care for yourself. So that's something I've kind of learned in my story. My story is after being on many ups and downs with weight loss and struggling with it since I was a teenager, doing a lot of the things that weren't very healthy for me, falling into programs, falling into fad diets, and even weight loss pills that are the magic pill that's out there. In 2015, October 21st of 2015, I from then to about 2017 or so, I lost pretty close to 100 pounds, and I have done it mostly through diet, but fitness has really become a big part of my life. And now fitness is not for weight loss anymore. Fitness is part of who I am and what I do. And it really is something that makes other aspects of my life easier and gives me confidence to do a lot more things.
And you're competitive too. So it brings out.
Yeah. That just came about. Yeah.
So your love for fitness was sort of rekindled in 2015, but you just started doing Deca more recently. What did the fitness look like for you when you started back? And then how did it come to Deca? Like, how did you start doing the Deca events?
I began, I was competitive before. I'd done half marathons, triathlons, but I would fall in and out of it. I would fall in and out of this trend of like taking, not focusing on myself and taking, thinking I needed to take care of other people. And then I would lose some weight and get real frustrated. Oh, this isn't working. I'm giving it all up, that kind of thing. October 1st of 2015, I won't go into too much detail, but I was kind of in a bad place in my life. And I was about to be 40. I was going to turn 40 October 25th. And I was struggling with some things that had gone on in my life. And I just kind of sat down on my couch after working. And I said, you know what, this can go one way or the other. I was already on high blood pressure medicine. I had been on it for like 3 years. That's something genetic that runs in my family, but it was it was going higher and higher. I'd been warned about high A1C. And I decided that I needed to exercise some self-care. And when I talk about self-care, I don't mean that I went and got a whole bunch of pedicures and massages. Self-care sometimes is doing something hard. I needed to get my life together, get my nutrition together, start taking care of myself. I'd always loved sports. I'd always liked working out. And I was going to recommit myself to doing that again, at least 3 days a week at that point. So then I joined a CrossFit gym and I got a personal trainer. I also saw my doctor about weight loss. I tossed around the ideas of surgery, but it really wasn't for me. It's kind of it's a really, weight loss surgery is a painful thing. And it's just another tool that you use to lose the weight. So I talked with my doctor. I did use some medical options for a little while, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's just another tool. We're learning more and more about why people don't lose weight, and especially women. There's a lot of factors that play into that. And then I just really leaned into good nutrition and committing to working out. And through that, in doing that, that helped me sort out a lot of the other and deal with a lot of the other hard things I was dealing with in life at that time.
Well, and I imagine as an educator, especially when you come upon really hard times in like your personal life, that it would be even more easy to just bury yourself in the enormity of issues that you face as an educator, both like just educating and then all of the different layers that go into that. So going back, you were an athlete in both high school and college, right?
Yeah, I wasn't extremely competitive, but I liked swimming, played a little softball, and I played some rugby in college. I was really liked swimming. So yeah, I had a love of sports, but it got, as life went on, I got further and further removed from it.
So you played sports, you did competitive swimming, even though you weren't you weren't Michael Phelps, but you loved swimming and competing, and it brought out, and I think I remember you telling me one time that it like was your life, like not intentionally, but to swim at that level, they kind of controlled everything. And so I imagine, and then you started playing rugby, which is wild.
That was fun. Yeah, that was club level rugby. Just, we played locally. It was fun. Yeah.
What, how did that come to be? Like, did you see a poster? Did you have a friend that was doing rugby?
Somebody grabbed me one time and just said, "Hey, we need to build up the rugby team. It was a club rugby. We need to build it up, and we'll teach you how to play."
Yeah,
that's really how.
And rugby's full contact.
Oh yeah.
Club, right? I was
more defense, so they came at me a little bit. Yeah, I never really ran the ball or got in the scrum or anything, but yeah.
That's awesome. Well, it's wild. Like I've never seen women's rugby. I had friends that played club rugby for the University of Alabama, and there was just the male team. So it's just the men's. And then I moved to Utah. And so I had watched so much rugby and stuff and had so many friends into it in Alabama that when I went into Utah, I was familiar with like the BYU's team, and they were really good. And so I would go, they had like a whole stadium just for their rugby, which is wild because being from the South, like in Alabama, football gets a stadium.
We didn't see it in Virginia very much either. Yeah.
So you did a rugby, and then you became a teacher. Mm-hmm. And I think there's probably a lot of people listening who are educators or in a field similar where it's I can't speak from experience, but I can imagine that it's easy to like just carry you through life. Like for you to just get focused, and it's important work, meaningful work. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden you wake up in 2015, essentially. I mean, there's a lot of life there. I'm not trying to skirt over.
I had cared for, I did have periods of time where I would take care of myself and lose weight. And then, I get it back. It's really easy as an educator or a social worker or any of those kinds of vocations where you're taking care of other people, to only focus on taking care of other people. And then I had a daughter, so it's really, it was really easy to go from, okay, taking care of these people. And then, as educators, we put in a lot more time than we're at school. Yeah. And there's things your kids invite you, your students invite you to games, and you want to see that. And it is really easy to get into, and that's important stuff. I'm not saying don't do it as someone who's in a role like that, but at some point you have to take time for yourself. And I wasn't doing that.
Yeah.
There was a time where I got really sick. It was weighing on my health.
Like a lot of people, even outside of more service-based professions lose themselves to a degree or even bury yourselves. It can become like almost a coping mechanism. I definitely have had periods of my life where work sort of defined everything for me. And if I was okay at work, then I was okay, even if I was neglecting my health or anything else. So then you get to 2015 and you have some hard life things. You start doing CrossFit 3 times a week with your coach. And that sort of rekindled your passion for working out. Did that lead was it prior to 2015 that you had done like triathlon?
I would go in and out of cycles. 2013 was kind of a big year. 2011, I did a lot. And yeah, I would kind of go in and out of these cycles of doing them and not doing them. Yeah. And some of it was work. And like, I would say, okay, wait, I got to focus on work. I've not been doing that. Or I would get real frustrated that I wasn't losing. I thought it was, for me at that point before 2015, it was all about losing weight. So if I wasn't losing the weight I wanted to lose, I would get real frustrated and stop.
Yeah.
Then I would say, none of this is working. Why am I bothering? And that was a really, that was not a good frame of, that's not a good frame of mind to be in when you're talking about weight loss. It's a long process.
Well, I think it's interesting because I think a lot of times we feel like wherever we are and we're feeling unhappy, we're not physically feeling that well and we're unhappy. And we think that the solution that will bring happiness or even health, like mental health, physical health, is getting that weight off, which usually isn't the case. So 2015, you come and you start, and it's more like, 3 times a week is a lot for CrossFit, I feel like, but it's also not a lot if you're in that all or nothing, this is going to be the solution. So when you approached CrossFit, when you got to that point where you're just approaching it, were you approaching it as a solution, or were you just like, I need to be active and this is going to be part of me going forward?
It was some of both. I really needed, at that point, I needed just a social life. I'd moved to a new area and needed to meet more people. I also needed, I knew this wasn't about weight anymore. It was about health. It was about where was my health going to go? I could have gone down this road of being diabetic by this point at 47 and having some real serious high blood pressure and heart problems had I not gotten a hold of it like that.
Painted a picture, and I'm not sure if sometimes I start adding in my own like colors and strokes. Yeah. just tell me to walk it back if I am. But you came to that moment, you're having a hard time in your life. You're sitting on the couch and you're like, something has to change. Like, this cannot continue. Was it like that next day that you went to the gym, or what did you do? What did you do to start? Where did you start? Like the very first, like the smallest of things.
Yeah. Okay. So I joined O2 Fitness, and then it's like, that's a gym I was just going to go to, take some fitness classes and then go in the gym. And then it was like, I had forgotten what to do. I didn't know how to work out anymore. Yeah. So I live near UNC. So near UNC, there were some gyms that employed some interns there that where I could get some personal training at a lower cost than what it might cost at places like O2. So those people would kind of set up programs or workout programs for me. So that's kind of how I got involved in that. That was where I really needed the help. And then there was a small CrossFit gym affiliated with one of them. So that's where how I got involved in that. And I've also, I've done CrossFit and not done CrossFit for a while, but it really is, it's a great thing to focus on, because you don't, sometimes we just exercise and we walk away like, well, this stinks, and you don't really have any goal. I had some goals in CrossFit. That was what was great about it, is I had some things I wanted to do. So I had a deadlift weight I wanted to do, or a certain overhead press weight I wanted to get to. So that was what was really cool about it for me, was having those goals. And I got to have something in front of me, or I will, I feel like I'm doing it for no reason.
It's probably true for a lot of people, because at first it's exhilarating when you start fitness or any sort of new thing because your progress is quick. So even if your weight loss isn't quick, like all of a sudden you can't squat, but then all of a sudden you can, and maybe you can squat a little bit more than you thought you'd be able to. And so you're like, wow, having that continuous progression is really cool. How do you think that helped you, aside from just giving you something to focus on? Like, what did it do for you? How did your life start to change?
I started to gain more confidence and to be bolder and take risks in life, and in my job. I think I became more better at setting boundaries, better at saying no, but I also became better of asking for what I needed at work, and advocating for myself, and and saying, hey, these are the things, these are my skills, this is what I can do. And I became just a lot more confident. The confidence that it gave me was really incredible. And it didn't matter what my body looked like anymore. I was doing really cool stuff. So it didn't matter to me anymore what my body looked like, right? It was like, okay, this is great. This weight loss is coming along with it. I love it. But it was really cool. That was a great thing.
When I met you, you were, and I don't mean bold. I think sometimes people say bold, and bold is like, has a negative connotation. I mean, no negative connotations with this. It was like a positive, like you were bold, and it's like, hello, I'm here. It's nice to meet you, which made it okay for me to be receptive and feel the same, which was really awesome.
Deca is really a place where you can, I guess when you come from a place where you couldn't do those things, I get real excited. Every time, I don't care if it's an event, like, so I'll kind of go back to what led me into Deca. In 2017, I decided I wanted to do a Spartan race. And so I started working out at a local gym here in Morrisville. I think Warrior Tech, I think you'd been there for one of the Deca events. Yeah. I started working out there, and I wanted to do a Spartan race. And I did do some Spartan races. I did double trifecta in 2019. Then 2020 came around, and I was going to do some Spartan races, but not as many as I did in 20. I did like 8 in 2019, traveled all over, and I wasn't going to do quite as many. And I was still running. I love to run. Running was like this time I could take my whole day and reflect on my whole day and really just process out a lot of things. I've listened to a lot of podcasts, which was great. So I think that doing this few Spartan races really gave me that, hey, I got out here and I just did this. I did this thing, and it's great. And nobody cared what I looked like or how heavy I was, or and it was great to do that. And then in 2020, I started having issues with my knee arthritis, which is also another genetic thing. And everybody in my family's got bad knees, whether they ran or not. And I knew that at some point the sun would set on my running. So later that year, I started working more towards strength training. Now, if you know the story of Deca was just going to be Deca Fit, where you run the 500 meters and do the station. And that caught my attention. But I knew I would just probably go and do it. And it would be, I think they were going to come to Raleigh in 2020. I was planning on doing that. But I would be a middle of the road athlete. I was going to have to take walk breaks for my knees, or I'm not a real fast runner, never was. So I knew that I was just going to be a middle of the road athlete with that. But late in 2020, when I found out there was Deka Strong, I really caught on to that for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's the same every time you do it. It's the same 10 stations. So no matter where you are, you're going to get that same gauge on how fit you are. So like I said, I like to have something in front of me. That was, okay, I did it this time. Next time I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it faster. I'm going to do it better. And I'm going to improve these things. So that's kind of how I work. So that's what I was really, really interested in about Deka Strong, was the constant improvement that you can show. So then 2021 came around. They hosted one there at Warrior Tech. It took me about took me about 22 minutes to complete it. And I kind of was sitting, when you're done, you kind of have to sit on the floor for a minute or lay on the floor or whatever. It's an exhausting thing. And I looked back and I said, I can do that. And I can do that better. And that really just, I was hooked at that point.
Yeah. Well, and 22 minutes is, if I could do it in 22 minutes, I'd be really happy because I still do it really, really slow. I wasn't there at that one, but I saw you a few months later. And it was the one that was outside and it was still quite cold. So I want to say like maybe March, April last year. So 2022. And
I think it was Smithfield. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's the first time we had met, and you had said hi before, and then you went through and did the Deca, and we were talking after, and I had no concept except for what I had done. And I don't even remember how fast you did it, but you had improved quite a bit over 22, because whatever your time was, it was faster than 22. Because I just remember.
Oh yeah, I think I saw you at.
You might beat my husband.
I think I saw you at iFit in December of like 2021. Okay. I think that's where, yeah. And then I think that's when somebody kind of shared your blog with me, and I was of course interested because we have a similar story. But yeah, I think that was Smithfield. That was after I had decided I wanted to make the Worlds. So 2021, they didn't have a Worlds, I guess COVID and the sport was still fairly new. So at the end of 2021, I was talking to Nelson, who's one of our Deca. He's like the Deca guy, does all the events on the East Coast for road shows. And he was telling me, we're going to have this Worlds event. And if you're top 12 in your age group, you can go. And it's in Atlantic City and you have to qualify. And we're going to do this in 2022. And I said, I think I can do that. And that was a big, hard goal. One of the things I did with that goal was make it public. And I was like, uh-oh. And I could kind of, I said, all right, I put this out there. I got to do it. That's another thing that motivates me. If I say I'll do it, I'm going to do something, I'll do it. And I could kind of tell by the way when people were talking to me, whether they believed I could do it or not. It's really interesting. It was an interesting process. So at that point, I think I was in the 18s in that February of 2022. Yeah, I think I was in there, and I had committed myself to doing that, to being in the Worlds. So.
Well, because it's funny, because at that point, I really wasn't paying attention because I had just done it and I had doubted if I'd be able to do any part of it, like let alone step ups were hard for me. There was a few things like lunging all the way down was still really hard for me. There were several things where I'm like, okay, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to do this. But your niece at the gym was just so encouraging. And she's like, you gotta just do it. Just come. Yeah, and so I did. And I was just happy my time counted. And I didn't really pay much attention to anybody else's time. So I don't even know if I would have been paying attention to other people's time that day when I met you. Like you said, I think it was February, but you had taught to me before and I had I didn't have a way to conceptualize it. And then you taught to me after you did it. And I was like, how'd you do? And I don't remember what you did, but I was just like, what? I had seen, I think Luke. So I had seen someone like that do it and they were like crazy fast. So going fast was possible, but my husband didn't do it that fast. He didn't do it like the Luke fast. And so I just was blown away. So when you said you were trying to get there, I didn't know what you were talking about, but I didn't doubt that you could get there. I was still new to the whole concept and things. I just liked it. So I thought that was really cool, but I feel like you've
I lost about 15 pounds last year. I got a little puffy over the winter of 2022. And that's another thing in weight loss that, I kind of want to share with people. That will happen. Life happens and things happen and you can't be so hard on yourself about that. So after, I guess about March, I think it was in Fayetteville or something. And I was stepping up on the box and I was like, this would be a little bit easier if I had a few pounds off. So then I kind of got back a hold of my nutrition. But one of the ways that we talked about Luke Hayes is really fast. I was seeing Luke all through 2021 at these events. And this guy was early on in Deca, it was really weird to see anybody get close to 14 minutes. Now they're in the 11s. These guys are really fast. But early on, and I was watching him do this and I was like, my gosh, how is this guy doing that? Then I found out Luke owns Trio Fitness Training, which is a they do training for OCR and stuff. So I got involved with him because I strongly feel that if you want to be one of the best, then you got to work out with people who are better than you, and you got to commit to that. And I knew that he would give me some tough workouts because he was certainly doing some. And so that's kind of how I got involved with him. He sends me 3 a week. We're still working. I just can't say enough good stuff about them. He and his brother run fitness, and a lot of these virtual programs that are out there. And sometimes you can't even talk to your coach, but I can ask questions online or send him my times, and he watched my video and bases my workouts off of what I need to improve. So
I already had met you, so I knew who you were. I think you were recording, and then you had mentioned something about sending it so that he could watch.
Yeah.
But I hadn't even considered using, because I had footage of the events that I had done so far. I hadn't considered using that footage in that way, which I thought was really cool. So you had your footage, and then you just worked on making small changes. Your fastest though, because I saw you do it in 16 something. Am I making? Yeah. So 16, it was really fast.
I hit the 16s a couple times. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I haven't seen, you went lots of places and did lots of Deca. And I think I just saw you do it once. And then I can't remember. I think maybe you weren't quite there, in the 16, maybe you hit the 16s, but it wasn't your best time because I feel like you were disappointed. So your bachelorette party, Deka Strong of it.
That was a frustrating day.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I got to work on. So a couple things. First of all, watching that video takes me way out of my comfort zone. I don't like to watch myself on videos. It's hard to watch the podcast, but that takes me way out of my comfort zone, watching myself on videos. So I had to learn to do that. I had to learn to share it with other people too. But yeah, you can just find these little things in there that if I had done that, I'd have 5 seconds. And it really comes down to seconds. I mean, the women in my age group, qualifying times from the top to the bottom, we're all about a minute of each other. So then, that day, it's a house of cards. And for some reason, the heat really bothers me, but the farmer's carry slipped out of my hand, and the rest of it was just downhill from there because I knew I kind of dropped off a little bit. I got to stop doing that. That's something I need to work on, recovering from mistakes. That
was something, this last one where my husband did, he was trying to get his fastest time, and he was doing so good. And then they had the wrong ball sitting out. So he just grabbed the ball and he did one throw, and he knew it was wrong, but I could see the wheels turning. He was ready to give up. And I was like, I set his time. And he was trending even with that to be his fastest time, but he had given it so much. He had given that Deka Strong so much.
Yeah, and it's kind of an attitude I get into. Well, I blew it. Okay, so I'm not going to send my heart rate through the roof the rest of this thing. That's not a good. It's real easy to get into because you're exhausted and you're very uncomfortable. It's crazy that I love something that makes you so uncomfortable, but your heart rate is through the roof, and I guess by the time I get to the box step ups, I'm kind of like, why did I sign up to do this again? Why am I doing this today? So that's really frustrating about it. So when you do hit those mistakes like that, you're just like, oh, forget this. I'll just throw the rest of the thing. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I totally relate. I think maybe a lot of people do too, whether they realize it or not. Sometimes when you're working out and you're really giving it, it can put you in such a negative. I love working out. And I don't know if I've ever had a workout where I'm like, that was awful after, but during the workouts, I'll be like, this is terrible. I hate this. And when people at the Deca, especially when people are they're encouraging you, they're like, yeah. And then they're counting. And I'm like, I hate this. And maybe I hate you too. I don't really hate anyone, but it's just that aggression, you get. It's hard and you're in pain. And then people are smiling at you. And so in the moment, that doesn't always feel super great. But immediately when I get done with any of those events, immediately when I get to the end, it's I feel so good. I can do
that's the greatest. That's the reason I do it. Yeah. Well, at the Worlds, I don't know if you know how the Worlds was set up. It was set up a little bit different. And I got a little behind there. It was like a free for all for the equipment. The Strong was, they kind of had it laid out in each zone. And then you just kind of ran to where you were going to go. So all the ladies, when we were starting, we were talking about, I'm going to go here for the lunges and here, we all knew where we were going for the lunges. But we don't run across start lines to start our Decas in our gyms here. We just, we had to run and running across the start line, everybody running past me kind of threw me off a little bit. So when I got down, Brad was out there. Luke had the camera. I don't know if you can hear me on my video, but Brad was like, you need to run between the zones. And I looked over and said, it sucks enough. Just stop. When people say things, it is good to hear the encouragement. I really like to hear it. But it just sucks enough.
Afterwards, when I look back, I'm grateful for all of the encouragement along the way. And I do think it helps, but it definitely fans the flames of the fire that's burning. I love it because outside of the Decas, doing those events, I don't put myself in that zone that much because I'm scared of injury. And even during the Decas, I guess I would be a little scared of injury. I should be probably more, but I lose that fear. And even though I'm not competitive with anyone except for myself, it's the same. So I love that about the Decas, is that just being able to compete against ourselves.
Yeah, it really is. It's a great marker for your fitness and what you can do. And then, and then Luke will say something like, I'll be on the air bike and Luke will say, well, you can do it. Come on, push a little harder. And in that moment, I'm like, I can't. I just can't. But looking back, I'm grateful that I live close enough to him that he can see me at events. It is. It's great. Nobody at a Deca has ever. Well, I told you about one incident that happened where a guy questioned me about something, but everybody has been really, really supportive at every event I've been to. Even the Worlds and the women that were way better than me that I was competing with. They were very encouraging. Everybody was very encouraging, very supportive. It's been a great environment all the way through.
Well, and I can't imagine. I think it's very rare that I've come across anyone in fitness where they are critical or demeaning in that way. Most people are championing for you or cheering you on.
Yeah.
And they do that for each other, and they do that regardless. So with Deca, even the elite athletes were out there cheering for people that were going through. So, and I love that. I find though it's people who have maybe things to work on themselves that end up being in that critical space. And so there's a confusion people make between. And this really frustrates me. I'm way smaller than I used to be, but I'm not a small frame type person. And so there's a confusion people get between being fit and being skinny. And there was a woman at an event and her husband was there, and she and I were kind of head to head in two lanes. We were running it. And I finished before she did. I beat her, and her husband asked me how a woman of my size could do something like that so fast. And I think, I had to go back and be like, okay, this is not going to cause you to go into those old habits of, thinking you're too large and, dropping out of everything. I didn't really say anything to anybody for a while, and because it took me a while to process that somebody had said that. And then, I had to realize that, I think there was something within him that was probably going on that made him ask that question. I wonder too, he may or may not have done the Deca event, but like I said earlier, even that February, so you were just getting, you had spent time in the competitive spirit, but you didn't have the goal, which I feel like probably shifted you of being at Worlds, probably shifted your focus and made you a little bit more intense. And so it was the beginning of that when you ran it. And I'm like, Okay, so she ran that just about as fast as my husband did. And my husband's in really good shape. So
yeah, he is.
It wouldn't surprise me if he's like, man, I couldn't beat my wife, and this lady would kick the crap out of me, and felt threatened by that. Which is
I think, it was something like that. I think that was going on that day. So it was,
what advice do you have for people in similar situations that you found yourself in 2015, where you had been neglecting your needs and you were going through a really hard time? What advice do you have for them? Like, what comes to your mind?
Well, you have to, like I said, self-care doesn't always mean that you're going to do things like pedicures, massages, things that make you feel better. Self-care sometimes is getting a grip on something in your life that's been a little bit out of control. So you have to commit to doing something hard. You have to commit to it, knowing that it's going to be hard, and that, but you're going to get a hold of this, and you're going to, like I was going to commit to losing, I didn't know how much weight I was going to lose, honestly, but I was going to commit to losing some of this weight and getting over some of these health problems. And then I knew that it was not going to be easy. But you also, along the way, you have to give yourself a little bit of grace. Like I said, my weight can still go up a little bit and up and down a little bit by 10, 15 pounds, sometimes even more. But you have to give yourself a little bit of grace because you are human. But you have to just remind yourself every day that of what your goal is. And I would write things on Post-it notes, and I wrote something on my computer one time that only meant something to me, but it was there to remind me of what my goal was. And I had a Post-it note on my computer. I had things on my mirror at home just to remind myself of what that goal was. Because if you can't lose focus of it, but along the way, you got to give yourself grace, and there will be a lot of other people who, people who have struggled with very similar things will come back and say things about what you're doing. Well, that doesn't work, or this doesn't work. You can't listen to that outside noise, and you can't watch these TV shows where TV commercials are, Johnny lost 50 pounds in 6 months, and you can't, well, what am I doing? What is he doing that I'm not doing? You got to drown out all of that noise and just, make it about yourself and make it about your personal goals and what you want. Because people will give you, when people see you focused on a goal, and like you said, something going on within them, usually, and I try to keep that at the front of my mind when I'm talking to people. When they see you working on some goal and they failed at other things in life, they tend to be a little bit more critical, and you just got to drown that noise out.
That makes a lot of sense. And as an educator, and the time that it takes for you to do that, how did you manage to when you were just starting, how did you manage to work fitness and starting to do that self-care, doing those things for yourself? How did you fit that in? And was it a struggle? How did you work through the struggle?
So, it can be, because you can have some long days. You can have some days where you come home and you're tired. And one of the things I kept in my mind was, I've taught students with learning disabilities, autism, all kinds of disabilities. One of the things I kept in my mind was, I tell these kids they can do hard things. They can do big things to meet their goals. So I need to set the example and meet my goals, right? So every week I looked at my calendar and I would pick the days. Now I work about 5 to 6 days a week, and I still do this every day. I used to put it in my calendar, but I don't anymore. But I just know, Monday is going to be a 5:30 a.m. workout. I was working out 5:30 a.m. today because I knew I would be recording this with you, and I had other things to do in the day. And sometimes I just like the morning. It gets it out of the way. Nobody calls you at 5 a.m. when you're working out, right? Nobody bothers you. So, nobody's going to ask you to stay late at work or come into a meeting or anything. So it's great. It's a good time. I would just say, okay, this day it's going to be this class, and I'm going to go here. And on this day, I'm going to do this. And once you start putting it on your calendar, because everything else on your calendar is important, to you, right? You're not going to miss a meeting, or you're not going to miss some event that you have planned out there. So if you put it in your calendar, it becomes important to you. So I started I started just writing it in. I'm going to go, this day I'm going to the gym at this time, I'm going to the gym at this time. And so now I can kind of look at it and just know, okay, these 3 days are going to have to be morning, these 3 have to be evening, or however I work it out.
That's really awesome. And it brings up, I feel like it's easier for a lot of people, especially women, and probably even more, this is probably more true with personalities that gravitate towards like education or caretaking. It's easy to do important and put priority on things for other people and feel like those are the most important. Mm-hmm. And then when you're looking at the things that you do for yourself, it's easy to just sweep it aside and not prioritize it. So that's a pretty powerful shift to schedule it, but not just schedule it, but then to reflect on, this is a meeting I have with myself. Mm-hmm. And these are other meetings that I have this day. And if something has to give, why would it be this thing? Why do I feel like that's not important? And even if that's not something you consciously go through, when we do ignore those times that we've set aside for ourselves, it is saying, I actually feel like these are more important than taking care of myself, which is not true. Like having that time for ourselves is so important.
Oh yeah. And there have been times where stuff's come up and I'm like, okay, it's not going to happen today, but it's very rare. It's very rare that I don't, that I have it on my calendar and can't and don't do it. That's a rare thing that happens. And I didn't believe, one of the things I didn't believe was that when you take care of yourself, you do a better job of taking care of other people. I didn't truly believe that. I was kind of raised with the whole, take care of others, others are priority. And that, of course, my job very much. But I guess it took me probably about a year to really believe like, wow, I'm taking care of myself and I'm doing great at my job. I didn't even take 2 sick days this year, or, you really can take care of other people a lot better if you take care of yourself. So then I started even prioritizing it even more at that point. And I have told, my daughter she thinks I have bad attitude if I don't work out. So she'll tell me to go, but I have said to people, we can get together, we can do this, but I'm going to work out first. I have said that to people, and I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that. I don't think it's selfish anymore. I don't think it's, you're not putting your friends off or whoever, your family, whoever you're going to meet with. I think it's okay to do that. And I think sometimes the American culture feels like it's not okay to do that. It's not okay to say, hey, I'm going to take care of myself first.
Well, and there's 2 things. I'll try to leave my little fingers up so that I remember. One, earlier you were talking about how when you started, and maybe not when you started, but at some point after you started with fitness and showing up for yourself in that way, it gave you more of a voice. You were able to be a little bolder when you're like, actually, I don't need this, or these are my skills and I would be able to help in these ways. Like it gave you a little bit more confidence. And that also helps you help others when you have a voice and you can speak up. I think that helps. And then the other thing, how did you handle, and I know you said it's rare that once you schedule it, you don't show up, but people listening, people who maybe haven't started any sort of fitness or health, anything, the motivation that comes in the beginning when you're making all of your plans and setting up like what this future looks like for you as you work towards your goal, we're going to stumble. How did you handle stumbles that you had along the way?
You just have to, I call it hitting the reset button. You just have to know that you are going to hit the reset button. It's real easy. It's really, really easy to stumble one day and then, oh, it didn't hurt me yesterday when I did it. So, it's real easy it's really, really easy to do that. That's easier than actually making it a habit. So you have to give yourself grace, but you also have to say, okay, this morning, tomorrow, I'm hitting the reset button and I mean it. And I'm going to do it. And you might not feel like, sometimes if I take a couple of days off from the gym, it's really hard to go back in. You might not feel like it, but you got to make yourself do it. And you'll thank yourself for that.
Do you ever take, and this is something I've thought of, I feel like if we don't give ourselves space, our body eventually takes it. Like I never set up like, okay, in December, I'm not going to work out this week. I'm going to take this week off and I might do some light activity. I've never actually done that. And yet I find that I have to do that because I haven't planned it. But I think it's healthier seemingly when I know there are people who do plan it out. Do you plan breaks like that, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, I do. I know when there are vacations. And I believe now my honeymoon, I did work out on it because the worlds were coming. I think people thought it was going crazy. We even worked out on my wedding day, but I think there were some vacations I've taken. I just know I'm not going to work out. And that's okay. Because your body does need that rest. I know the holidays are coming. They may be 2 or 3 days where I don't work out. I have some planned rest in there, and I also have some planned active recovery weeks that are lighter workouts than others, and maybe not as many days. And sometimes just taking a walk, dialing it back a little bit. And then once, I had to learn that I had to learn what rest days were really, but resting, there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of athletes do it. Well, I think most of them do, because that's when your body needs that extra time to recover. I thought athletes just pumped hard up until, their event, and then kept going afterwards. I didn't realize that the type of fitness athletes take rest days, but that really is important. Yeah, I schedule it in, but then you gotta, when day 7 comes around, you gotta go back to the gym. You gotta do it.
So when you started working out, you sort of essentially built a team and putting that time, prioritizing yourself, meeting with people. So first your trainer, and then you started going to the gym, and then it became part of just your lifestyle. How has having a coach like Luke, how has that helped you in your overall fitness as outside of just like the Deca prep?
Yeah, I really, I sometimes don't believe that I can do what I can do. And I, for a certain time, I was a certified personal trainer for a short time, did that on the side, and I can program myself, but I don't push myself. So having a trainer who can having that outside eye from somebody who can watch you and know what you're capable of, and then give you those workouts that really challenge yourself is really important. And like I said, I want it to be somebody who's better than me at the sport that I'm doing. I want it to be somebody who can really, really push me to where they know I can go. So Luke has he's done a good job of that. I mean, sometimes there have been some workouts that really have been tough to get through. But it obviously is paid off. It's been good. And he'll say things like, what do you put? I hit 300 calories on the bike one day, jumping off every 5 minutes. And, just knowing when I saw him put that in there, that he knew I could do that, was like, wow, will I get through this? But he knew I could do that. So having that person looking in from the outside, I think that's really important. And it's a way of asking for help, which I think is another form of self-care, is asking for that outside help. There's nothing wrong with that either. Because, we sometimes, we don't know, we think we know ourselves. We don't know ourselves as well as we think we do.
Yeah, I think it's easy to be blind to some of our limitations, especially I feel like the more focused I am on maybe shortcomings, the easier it is not to recognize things that are holding me back, which is weird, but it's that not recognizing that you could go a little bit harder because you feel like you're going as hard as you can. But when you have a coach and they're like, harder,
Yeah, he was like, "You're going to do your farmer's carry 50 pounds this week." And if he didn't tell me that, I'd be picking up the 40 pounds all the time.
Yeah.
I need somebody to tell me I can do that.
Well, in closing, so this will be the last question I ask. For those people who are sitting home right now and they're thinking about starting a fitness journey on January 1st, what do you have to say to them? What kind of encouragement can you give them? It's just kind of two questions.
Yeah, just begin, just start, whether that is going for a walk, for whatever it means for you. So a lot of people at work are like, wow, you do this. I can't do what you do. Or, a lot of friends say that you don't have to do what I did. Success for you can mean a lot of different things. It can mean walking a mile a day. It can mean, attending your favorite fitness class. A success, you've got to define what success will look like for you and prioritize it. If you have to put it on your calendar, whatever you need to do, figure it out. If you got to wake up at 4:30 in the morning, figure it out. Just know that it's not going to be real easy at first, but you just know that you've got to do these things. Well, I'll say it might be easier at first. At first, you see a lot of success, but then you kind of plateau, and that's where we get discouraged, or where it just becomes blah, boring. You just persist, just keep doing it. And I would say for anybody in life, give yourself something hard. Give yourself a hard goal. It's amazing when you give yourself a hard goal and you write it down, or you put it on your social media, or you tell somebody that's what you're going to do. It's amazing what you can do. So don't be afraid to say, by the end of this year, I'm going to run a 5K. If you're just walking a mile in January, you can do it. It's doable. And it is amazing all the things that you can do. And it changes every aspect of your life. So the biggest advice I could give is I could just say, just go out and do it and commit to it. Make it part of your life. Tell your family, I've heard a lot of people say, I don't have time to work out because I get up in the morning, I go to work, and then I come home and I have to make dinner. Well, you tell your family, whoever's in your household, this night you're going to make dinner because I'm going to be working out, or I'm going to get up early in the morning. You get yourself ready or whatever, fix breakfast. I'm going to be working out in the morning. So just making that commitment to yourself that you're going to do it. You have to jump in there. What was the second part of your question?
I think you covered both.
Yeah.
And they work together. So I think that's great. And I completely agree. Just finding a way to start. And then, so because you said that, so you suggested starting, even if it's just going out for a walk, doing something small. You suggested setting a hard goal for themselves, maybe for a year from now or 6 months, or just a hard goal, something that pushes you, that's outside your comfort zone that you wanted to do. And then prioritizing yourself, not just by putting what you need to do on the calendar, but also by letting people know, like, maybe I always do this for you, but on this day, you need to do it for you because I'm going to do this for me. That's all really powerful stuff. And
April, I think you really embody that. I mean, I remember, and I've watched some of your videos online. You have really set out and made a very, very hard thing public. I've always said about my weight loss, I'll never tell anybody it's impossible, but I will never tell you it's easy. I still struggle now. And I'll never tell people it's easy, but you committed to doing a very hard thing. And especially by putting it on your vlog, I think that's incredible bravery. But when I saw you at like the first Deca, I think at iFit, and then seeing you at the Worlds at doing the Deca Fit, that your progress is amazing. I remember the first time I saw you, you were having to stop and during your lunges and take a breath and get water. And, I think you did that thing all the way through, and it was great. It's really good to see that you really embody that, doing that hard thing and prioritizing that in your life. And I think you're probably one of the better examples out there of that.
Oh, thanks, Joy.
Yeah. I really enjoy our conversation, and just keep doing it. Just know along the way, it's not always going to be easy. Life happens. It's not always going to be easy.
Well, thank you so much, Joy, for joining me on my podcast. I'm so grateful for you and for sharing your story. Any final words?
No, I will, I don't know, maybe one day I'll get brave and vlog like you, but if you follow me on Instagram, it's at barbells _and _burpees. It's barbells and burpees. And that's where I kind of share more of my fitness stuff on Instagram than I do on Facebook. So I'd love some followers.
Look up her Instagram and it'll be on the screen below.
Okay,
below, and then it'll be linked in the show notes. If you're listening, if you're watching, it'll be linked in the description. So definitely visit Joy's Instagram, and I will.
And hit me up with questions. You feel free to ask as many. If you watch this and you want to ask me some questions, I'm open to talking about it. Absolutely.
Thanks, Joy.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for Joy for being willing to share her story here with you all and for sharing it with me. She is such an inspiration. Definitely check her out on Instagram. And if you'd like to watch this on YouTube, it is available. And then if you are watching on YouTube, it is also available for download on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other directories.